Hughes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everybody who physically showed up and everybody who's digitally showing up, because as science tells us, it is 100% easier not to do things than it is to do things. And so you guys are doing a thing. Congratulations. My name is Gary. I am a headshot and portrait photographer from Orlando, Florida. And this is hopefully my first time speaking live at Adorama without anything breaking, which will be really great. Because you can go back into the archives to my first time here, the day Seth Miranda, aka Last Witness, and I met. And how many we went through tether cables and triggers.
My man went through 3 full-on straight-up cameras, 5 cables. We almost swapped laptops, and yet he came through. He got shots delivered, and that
Who was that?
Pro.
6 or 7 years ago, and people still come up to me and be like, I saw that thing on Adorama, man, and whew, that looked like you were tap dancing up there, and I was.
For those of you online that are wondering, it's on the main channel if you guys want to search Gary Hughes on Adorama TV.
Don't want to miss that. If you want to watch a grown man trying his hardest, that's the place to do it.
If you want to watch a grown man sweat through 4 shirts that were layered.
Well, I'm sweating through shirts today. I didn't mean to come from Florida to Florida, but hey, and special thanks to Adorama and everybody who worked to get me here, and my friends at Fujifilm and Flashpoint. And what's cool when I come to Adorama, I don't have to bring anything because I already have all the gear that I actually use in my studio. So that's pretty cool. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you like just a couple of minutes on my process. The reason I think that this course is important, not because I think that you should try to cram yourself into the smallest space possible to create portraits, is because that's what happens to me all the time. My first studio was an 8x12 room. I remember I've done so many portrait assignments for clients where they put me in a place that was difficult to shoot in and you have to think your way around it. So this is just a couple of practical ideas that sometimes you just really got a small space to do your very best. And hopefully you'll use some of that in moving forward, but I would never wish a small space upon you. I wish you only 3,000 square foot places with 20-foot ceilings and a perfect cyc wall all the way around and large modifiers and plenty of assistance, but mostly the rest of it's work in the real world. So here we go. All right, so let's get started. If just a little background, I'll give you just sort of the type of work that I do. I do professional headshots. By and large, it's about 90% of my business. I photograph individuals for billboards and bus ads and stuff like that. And then sometimes I get to photograph cool creative professionals, tattoo artists, musicians. But out of the 9,000 people we photographed in my studio last year, the vast majority of those were LinkedIn headshots or email signatures shot at a convention en masse, shooting at least 150 people a day. And we do that for companies from all over the world, from like Uber to IBM to, to billion dollar brands you've never heard of. I just do LinkedIn headshots basically for a living. So I am in the trenches all the time. I don't just travel the world to exotic places like Seth's camera room. Yeah. But this is what I do. I photograph individuals and I photograph a lot of volume. So a lot of what I've learned comes from cutting my teeth in the most difficult possible situations, and I'm doing it with the least expensive gear I can find that I don't mind breaking, and I do that all the time. And I also travel a ton, and when I travel a ton, I love to take pictures. It's how I enjoy the world. Having my cameras, I have 2 cameras I travel with, and that's my Fujifilm X100VI and my Fujifilm X1/2, and those are my anxiety medication for I'm one of those people that maybe like you, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know how to relax in social situations. And so I just take lots and lots of pictures of my kids and my wife and the places that we travel. And so I like to do photography as my job, but I do photography for fun, but in a completely different way. High stress, lots of people, low stress, shooting JPEG, don't even care if I ever use the images for anything because it's just basically to keep me from having a panic attack. All right, let's move on. I think I've broken down how I approach taking powerful portraits. I only take pictures of people for their job in my studio. I don't do babies in buckets, couches in fields. I don't do weddings. I don't hang things from trees. I take pictures of people who want great photos in the shortest amount of time possible. So I want to break down just kind of like the elements that I think I need to include in my images and then the levers I use to get those. So to start with, I think that great portraitists use dimension. That's taking a 2-dimensional medium and making it appear more 3-dimensional. I think that creates more powerful images. And honestly, I think that's the #1 thing that photographers, when they're first starting out, don't get, is that we are working in a two-dimensional abstract medium and you're trying to make it seem more real. And the best way to do that, I believe, is using dimension. Second is composition. I think that is another thing down the journey. You learn how to push the buttons on your camera. You might learn how to use an off-camera light and create dimension. But to tell part of the story by how you compose the image instead of just taking a picture. I think a lot of thought in composition creates more powerful images. Expression, I think, is so subjective, but when you're working with other people, how they view the expression is the most important thing. How they felt when you took the image is really important. Somebody can look at an expression. You ever post an image in a Facebook group for photographers? It's the worst, right? Like, we're the worst. like, oh, he looks grumpy. It's like, oh, I actually thought he looked kind of pensive and powerful. No, he's grumpy. Like, expression is so subjective. But it's about the person in the image, about how they feel and how it makes you feel when you look at it. And expression is a thing that goes beyond just having a technically great image. It's a thing that makes an image connect with a viewer. I also think that whenever possible, the number one thing that elevates a portrait is story. If there's some kind of story in an image, or you can interpret something in an image, it takes it beyond just a picture. I think the best quote I ever heard was, a portrait isn't a picture of somebody, it's a picture about somebody. And I think that just sticks with me. I didn't invent that. That's just something I heard that I thought was really cool. If you stop taking pictures of people and start taking pictures about people, I think your work is going to get better, or at least set that intention. And then, obviously, if Pete Coco was still here, buddy, if you're watching, this one's for you. I always used to say that it doesn't matter how good you are as long as you can sell it. But I also believe it hits a point where your work becomes so good technically that even muggles can tell the difference, right? And we tell we're wizards, non-photographers are muggles, right? Most of the time they can't tell the difference between pretty good and great, etc. But if your work is so good, even non-photographers stop and go, wow, that's incredible. So that's the thing that I aspire to that I don't always hit. I promise you, 9 out of 10 pictures I take are probably bad. Maybe even more, maybe 99 out of 100. So to create dimension, we use lighting. Masters of light and shadow, knowing when to add light and when to take light away. And that's one of the things we're going to show you today. You want to also have intent in your images. I think the thing that takes a good photographer to a great photographer is seeing the image you're going to take before you pick up the camera. Picking up the camera should be the last thing that you do. Let me put it this way. You shouldn't be surprised at the back of your camera, right? You should never go, oh man! Like, you should ideally know what lighting ratio you're trying to create, what expression you're going for, how you're going to compose the image. The less often you are surprised by your camera, the better a photographer you are becoming. In case you couldn't tell, that would be like the litmus test. I think that a great portraitist is an empath, someone who has empathy. They listen to people, they observe people. Not all good ideas, not all creative things are ours. I think photographers, we can be selfish creators. Like I was talking about, I take pictures because of my anxiety. When I'm taking a picture for someone else, that's not for me. It's about them. And the more you do that, I think the better you are, the more you can tell a story, the more you can bring something out in them. I think one of the best things that you get when you photograph someone is they go, that looks like me, or that feels like me, or that's my expression, that's something that I do. And so if I photograph somebody for an hour, I usually spend about 20 minutes just talking to them, and I just look at their face. I watch how they sit when they relax, how they lean on things, how they emote, what their real smile looks like. And you go into a session like that arms. Now, we don't always have time to do that. But the point is, have in your head to be observant, have empathy, and I think it'll make you a better portraitist. And then I think attention to detail is something that can be lost in our digital world. I think you can just go, well, oh, that white background, I'll just make it white in post. Or, oh, I'll just add this and I'll fix that and I'll tweak that. And that is true, and it saved my butt 1,000 times, just like it's probably saved yours. But the more I try to not to have to do that, the better my work gets. And as a professional photographer, the less time I spend on the computer, the more money I get to keep. You know what I mean? The more time I get with my kids. My goal is to have coffee with my wife every morning and dinner with my kids every night. Now, I'm not doing that tonight thanks to you guys. I'm here with you. Thanks for taking me away from my kids. No, so I think that attention to detail, the more you do that, the more you slow down, take fewer photos and add more detail. Today on this Fujifilm photo walk we did, I think I almost caused the model to have a heart attack because I asked him to put the clasp to his necklace in back before I took the photo. Could I have fixed that in post-production? 1000%. But not only do I not now have to do that, but that person also thinks I'm paying attention. You ever have that? Like, oh, that's real. You must be really good at your job for that. Like, they think you're a better photographer because of that? They might. They're muggles. They have no idea what they're doing. All right. And finally, they have no clue. Practicing your craft. Now, my wife's favorite band is Less Than Jake. Anybody familiar with this band, Less Than Jake? They're like, since she was 14 years old, her favorite bands. Like, it's a ska act. They're great. They're a lot of fun. We've seen them, I don't know, 100. I've seen them 100 times. She's seen them 10,000 times. Anytime they come within 100 miles, she goes. I believe that they're a band. They give me the impression, and if anybody from Less Than Jake happens to see this, we love you. I've spent so much money on your merch and at your shows. But you get the impression that they all live far away from each other because, like, they don't practice together a lot. So at the beginning of a tour, they're not quite as tight as if you see them play at the end of a tour when they've been on the road playing together. Practice is really obvious, and it makes those things so you don't have to think about them. When you have those problems like, oh, your equipment dying, you know what to do. Your Rolodex of ideas, of things, ways to solve problems in a situation gets deeper and deeper the more you practice. And I think that's something that I'm guilty of. When you get busy as a photographer, your life gets busy, you don't. You don't play, you don't practice. So I think all of these things are not always qualities that I exhibit, but qualities that I see great photographers exhibit that I aspire to. So I'm not saying I have all these things. I just kind of recognize they're good. You know how, like, when you think about jogging, but you don't, but it makes you feel good that you thought about jogging? Like, that's it. That's basically it. This is what I do. Okay. So now I'm going to give you... All right. So here's my process when I'm creating portraits, okay? Most of the time, people are coming in for a specific thing. I need a headshot for my LinkedIn photo. I need a business card. I need a picture for this billboard. Number one thing I always do is I shoot the commission first. What did they hire me for? And I do that get that out of the way. Normally, that stuff is like, you could train a clever chimpanzee to do the most of the commission work that I do. It's really not that difficult, but I get it out of the way first because I believe in not wasting people's time. And then once I do that, my favorite thing to ask somebody in the studio is, do you have a couple of minutes? Because I'd like to do something else. And usually they're like, well, shoot, I'm dressed. Why not? And so they almost always say yes. Then I'm going to look at them, I'm going to analyze them, and I'm going to dig deep to try and find something that's going to be more interesting. And in this case, what am I trying to show about them that's unique or interesting? What story is there to tell? Then I'm going to go ahead and set up that idea. I'm going to take a test shot. I'm going to make sure my lighting is all together. And once my lighting is all together, I'll make any adjustments I need to make. I measure everything with a light meter that I've got around here somewhere. I shoot a color target. I make sure that everything is exactly how I want it for the most part, because when I say go to my subject, we are now taking the real thing. Then I'm all about them. I don't want to be fussing with lights or fussing with anything in between shots. I'm going to think about the shot, create it in my head, create it physically with the things I have available, and then I'm going to give all of my emotional energy to the person that's sitting in front of me. Because I see photographers do this all the time. You shoot and you look, and you shoot and you look, and then you adjust, and then you shoot. Like, half your session is just messing around with your crap in between when you've got a living, breathing person like beautiful Gerald over here, who I've ignored completely so far. We're going to do it, man. All right. So I hope that makes sense. I think it's very important to test, make your adjustments, and then you engage the person in front of you. You're going to get much better results. And I'm not talking about cheesy jokes necessarily, although I've got quite a few of those. Yeah, thanks, Seth. And I'm talking about just giving them your energy and attention, and stop giving your attention to the technical parts of your job that you should already have handled. So I think if you're ever working on a commercial set with like a photographer shooting a big commercial job, your subject is a celebrity, They don't walk in there and stand around while you adjust your lights. You've completely tested that whole setup on all your interns before that person even walks on, and they're on set for 5 minutes. Treat every client that way. Do not waste their time. Treat them like the person you are the most interested in being with and talking to. And I think that you're going to get better results out of them and probably make more money too. And then once you have them engaged, that's when you push the shutter. That's when you execute. The execution is really important. Engage them and then grab it when you're getting that emotional response. Does that all sound pretty good? All right, let's go ahead and do it in real life then. For real life.
Absy's saying Carol Deanne, say hello.
Hey, Carol. Hey, Ab. I'm going down to see them at the Bokeh Academy Summit in a week or so down in hot Atlanta. All right. All right, Gerald. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is shoot the commission, right? So Gerald and I have discussed this ahead of time. Gerald is he's an actuary. I thought that sounded interesting. I don't know what that is. Is it sort of like an accountant? Gerald is an actuary. And we're going to take, even though Gerald dresses not like an actuary. There we go. Seth, if this falls down. Oh, it's good. See, Seth set this up, by the way. He set up the C-stand. It should be fine. Better check it. Okay. So let's go through the live process here real quick. And there we go. So what I've got here is this, this is a Flashpoint 400, I think, as my main light. And I've got a 8200 Explorer Evolve 200 Pro as that. And then I've got my little soda can light. That's the Explorer 100 Pro. So I've got 3 lights. What we're going to do right now is we're going to build this setup one light at a time. There we go. Mode. I'm turning these off. I don't need a modeling light. No, modeling lights are amazing, but I've been photographing in like boardrooms at noon for so many years. My brain doesn't even see them. I'm one of these people who's like incredibly surprised by how useful constant lighting is. You know, like, oh my God, you see what you got. Oh, it's great. But I've just never turned on a modeling light because they just don't work on a trade show floor, you know, which is where I do 90% of my photos. Okay, so what I've got here is I'm measuring this to be at f4. So when I photograph a person for like a business portrait, I typically do it at f5.6 or f8. I'm shooting with the Fujifilm X-H2, which is an APS-C sensor camera. Long story short, 5.6 gives you the equivalent depth of field of f8. So, but I'm going to shoot this at f5.6. For those of you settings nerds out there, that's ISO 250, 1/125th of a second, and we've got 5.6 is what my main light is reading. So we're going to build this one light at a time. All right, Gerald, I want you to pretend to be really boring. I know. All right, probably bring that down a little bit. Did you move my light set? Did you just turn my modeling light on set? All right, so when I'm photographing we good? I think we're good. Yeah. So let's do that first. Yep, so this is going to be our blank slate here. Okay, that's pretty good. So what I'm doing is I'm photographing everything without the flash to see how much ambient light is going to be affecting the final exposure. In this case, I think you can see it at him a tiny, tiny bit, but as my mama would say, that's near enough, it makes no difference. All right, there we go. Yeah. So now we're all right. So now we're just going to do a quick test. Okay, so this is one light. And as you can see, I've got a pretty good lighting ratio. The exposure's bang on. And when you do use a light meter to do your exposure, I think one of the things that you'll find is that it may end up actually looking a little bit underexposed to what you're used to seeing. And there's a reason for that, because LCD screens are so cool, but they're liars. They're lying liars, and they want it to look bright and beautiful and colorful for you, and your brain's a liar, and your brain's used to that. So it is almost always better to use this as how much light is actually falling on your subject, and so we've got that covered. The idea is I don't want to blow out any highlights. I don't want shadows to block up. I want all my pixels to be preserved and ready to rock and roll. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another light, because what do we say? We're going to create dimension, right? So let's add, this is going to be a 1x3 strip light, and this has a grid on it. And if you're not familiar with a honeycomb grid like this, essentially it narrows the throw of light so that it's not spilling all over the place. It's an incredibly useful thing in small spaces. Is if you have a small space that you find yourself working in from time to time, and you bust out that 75-inch umbrella to take that headshot, and you're like, why can't I control the light? Just get a smaller light. You'll be all right. And that's one of the reasons I like a big modifier, and I've been made fun of a lot. Like I'm minimum 56 inches or bigger for like a headshot because I just like how soft it is and how forgiving it is. But when you're in a small space, that smaller light source gives you much better control over how you're carving your subject out of the darkness, which is essentially what we're doing. So now I'm going to add this. Yeah, and we got an online question or an in-studio question?
So someone in the chat's asking, what head are you using on that 200 Pro in the strip light? Because there's so much.
Oh, right. So the question is, in the AD200 Pro, has you can swap the head out to a Fresnel head, to a bare bulb. It's even got now like a weird like LED modeling light cool attachment. They're very, very versatile. Probably the best pocket strobe on the planet. But I just use a Fresnel head because I break stuff a lot. I've gone through a lot of those bare bulbs because I'm a very clumsy person. So I mostly just shoot with a Fresnel head on it. I would do this. Go to your home or studio or wherever you like to shoot. Set up, take 50 pictures with a Fresnel head and then 50 pictures with the bare bulb shooting through a softbox. And then if you can line up which is which, I'll buy you lunch next time I see you, if you can tell the difference. So that's, I think, unless you're using them bare, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. A bare bulb's best is when it's not in any kind of modifier. You can light up a whole room with it. It's kind of amazing. All right, so now we're going to add this second light for Gerald, and then bam. Okay, so now you can see that we've started to get a little bit of separation on the side of him. I think that you got to carve your subject out of the background. So right now we're already using 3 different kinds of lights. I've got my main light. I've got this beautiful white piece of foam core here as a reflector that's acting as our fill light. And now I've got an edge light that creates separation. Now you want to always be able to tell where your subject ends and the background begins. Leslie.
What's your main light, the softbox?
This is a 36-inch Parasnap, glow Parasnap softbox. This is my whole kit, man. Like, I have all of these. I replaced my whole, as soon as these came out, and they fold completely flat. So all of my location gear is predicated upon will it fit in this one particular bag that I own. So I keep buying smaller stuff to fit more things in that bag. All right, and now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this little soda can light on the back here, just to give us a little gradient on the background. And I'm going to sit. Gerald, is it okay if I sit? All right, man. All right, so now everything's tested and ready to go. Actually, we need to do one last test. Here we go. Okay, you look like a very good actuary. All right, so let's put those up side by side real quick, and so you can see the difference between 3. Okay, so the first image on the left, that's going to be, I think, all 3 lights working together. This image is going to be 2 lights with no light on the background, or 2 lights with no light on the background, and that is just the 1 light. 1 light, 2 light, 3 light. Now, I typically use stuff in a way that's pretty subtle. So if you're doing the math, if my main light is metering at f5.6, most of the time I will use edge lights or any light that's on the subject from any other angle. I'll start at 2 stops below the main light, sometimes 3. So that would mean that light, I would like that at f2 or f2.8. I want it to be there doing a job, but I don't want it to look like a promo for Dancing with the Stars. I just don't want it to be overlit from behind. You're adding dimension, filling in some of those dark pixels while still keeping the shape of the light. Little gradient on the background, we're ready to go. So now everything's tested, and we're going to shoot the commission, and we're going to talk to our subject. So since you have the most boring job in the world, we want to make you look like the nicest man in the world, right? So I'm going to coach you through a couple different expressions, and then we'll move on to something else. All right. Yeah, hey, let's hit the question, Seth.
Brad's asking, does glare on glasses bother you?
Does that, Brad?
Brad
McMillan wants to know if glare on glasses bothers me. That's a great question, Brad. The answer is it bothers everyone. It bothers literally everyone on earth. Like, yeah, so, but I'm going to show you how I deal with it. So that's great that you notice it. I'm not so concerned about it because these are my test shots, but I will deal with that glare when the time comes. All right, let's ready to rock and roll. Now, Brad, if you would stop bothering me so I can pay attention to Gerald, please. All right. I got to go through the process. The snoot. Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll get to that. All right, Gerald, are you ready? You have all my attention now. Yeah. Okay. So when I'm posing somebody, I pose them from the bottom up. I start at the bottom. If everything's good down here, everything will be better up here. So his bottom right now is his bottom. So let's rock and roll. All right, Gerald, a little up straight and keep your shoulders loose. When you get people straight, it tips their head back, right? And people do that kind of, they get good posture, but now they're like this. So you have to figure out how to get them like this without doing this. And so mostly the trick that I use, everybody knows this trick who's watched YouTube, is you want them to bring their face to you. But how do you get them to do that without like doing weird shoulder stuff, you know? I don't know, you want a turtle? You want a chicken? Like, I work with a lot of actors. So I think I like to give people a scene instead of physical direction whenever possible. And so in this case, Gerald, I want you to do this. Can you lean in like I'm talking too quiet? Like this? Yeah, like yeah, perfect. There you go. And now tilt your head a little this way. Lips gently together. Bring your chin down a little. There it is. And now what I want you to do, keeping those lips gently together, is let a small smile start to creep into the corners of your mouth. No teeth though, but keep those lips pressed gently together and then chin down. Tilt this way a little bit. There we go. Boom. All right. Now a little more smile. I need 8%. There it is. Tilt a little bit that way. And now lips together, pushing into the corners of that. Let it crinkle the bottoms of your eyes and the corners of your mouth at the same time. There we go. Beautiful. Now I need a little bit less resting bouncer face, if you could do that. Beautiful. All right. You know that thing we do when you're laughing with a group of people and everybody has a good belly laugh and then you go like, that thing, like, remember that laugh we had 10 seconds ago? That one. Okay, tilt this way a little bit. Okay, good. And chin down a little bit, Gerald. And now lips together. Give me that same energy, but no teeth. Love that. Perfect. All right. You have a hard time not looking like a sexy model. I think that's the problem. Perfect. All right. And now what I want you to do is turn your feet this way. Now, I had this conversation with Gerald before, and I'm going to give you this. Your brain hates it when your face and your chest are pointed in different directions. So when you do a pose like this, somebody's going to drift back over and over and over again. Your brain does not like this, but it's a cool, effective way to pose people when the face and the body are in facing opposite directions. So come back a little bit, Gerald, if you would, to me. Just a touch. There you go. So I want you to sit up tall, relax your wrists just here on the tops of your thighs. And I want you to lean on your right hip. There you go. And now I want you to bring your chin forward, bring it down, turn your head this way. There you go. And then lips gently together. And now you're a men's divorce attorney. That's your motivation. Chin down just a little bit. See, now you're nicer than you were when you were the actuary. There you go. Perfect. There it is. All right. Now chin up just a little and then down a little. You see how that glare comes and goes? There you go. And now turn your head a little this way. There it is. And we're going to broad light Gerald, which means that I'm shooting into the lit side of the face, into the shadow side of the face, which is something that I do a lot when I'm getting glare on the glasses, especially in a volume situation. I don't have time to move everything. Tilt this way a little bit. Lean into me, talking too quiet. There you go. Lips together. Right there. Okay. All right. The men's divorce attorney for all of New Jersey. All right. Turn your head to the left a tiny bit. There we go. That's right. $99 divorces with Gerald. There we go. Good. That's what I needed. Okay. Perfection. All right, let's take a look at those. Thanks, Gerald. Oh, am I still on? Audio still good?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. No, it's a Samson. Audio joke. Never mind.
We use Sennheiser mics here. Thanks, Sennheiser, for hooking up the space.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Sennheiser microphones. All right, cool. All right. Yeah, let's take a look at some of these. Okay, great. You got me, buddy? All right. So let's take a look through some of these. I think that what we've got here is going to cover that commission pretty well. Got some variety of expression, got separation from the background, got nice light in the eyes, and we're able to pretty much avoid all the glare on glasses. So the this is a question I get every time I've ever taught a seminar on lighting. Somebody pops into the chat and goes, what do you do with glasses? Well, it's less of a problem than it used to be. I was doing this 18, 20 years ago when everybody had readers from CVS, and you know, it was a lot harder at the time. So now anti-glare glasses do a pretty good job for the most part. But even when they don't, here's the last time I will ever address this. If you ever ask this question again, I'm just going to give you a link to this video. What you're trying to do to avoid getting reflections of your lights and reflectors in glasses is you need to create as large an alleyway as possible between the two lighting modifiers. The further away that these two things are from each other, the more room you will have to move Gerald's head around without getting a reflection of one or the other in the glasses. Now, some glasses are better than others, and in some cases you may not want to do that because it also changes the quality of the light when you move your modifiers around. But if you're in a situation where you have no choice, basic, easy thing to do is get your lights a lot further away from the person. Make a wider alleyway between these two things, and you'll find it a lot easier to photograph people without getting those reflections in there. Okay, that's it. We never have to talk about this again. Seth, you got a question?
Yeah.
If it's about glasses, I am out of here.
Don't worry, guys. I'll keep covering glasses every time I'm live. Brad is asking, what do you do when your subject isn't so interesting?
That's a fair question. And Brad, you know what? My man, I'm telling you, I say every time, I was like, whenever I speak at conferences and stuff, I'm like, can you give me a model that looks like a normal person? And they still give me someone who's impossibly good looking every time. Because like it's expensive equipment, great looking person. What are you going to do, you know? But among you guys out there, decide amongst yourselves who's the ugliest, and I'll photograph that person right now and make them look good. Dude, you look amazing. I'll make you look so good. I think, again, that's where empathy comes in, too. It's like, I think it's all relative because Gerald could be walking down the street, and there could be people going like, good Lord, I must know this man. Who is he? And then there are other people that would be like, not into him at all. So it is subjective, but... What I do is I look at the person, I listen to the person, I try to find the angle that flatters them the most. I look at their face, which way does their nose point? Is one of their eyes more apparent than the other? What's the angle of their face down the center? Do they have a weird scar from a knife fight when they were a kid? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to look at them, and honestly, one of the things that I do the most, Brad, is I ask people, is there a side of your face you like better? Is there something about your face that worries you in photos? Is there anything that you think about that stresses you out when you're going to have your photo taken? And as long as you're kind, you'd be shocked by what people tell you. They will tell you, they'll go right to the mole. They'll be like, mole, 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 or whatever it is that's on their face that bothers them. They'll be like, I have a chipped tooth on this side, and I don't have enough money to get a veneer, or whatever it is. Like, they'll tell you these things. Just ask, listen, and then do something about it. That's what I do. I photograph mostly ugly people, Brad, I'm going to be honest. And everybody I photograph is beautiful and they look incredible. All right, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to try to get a little more interesting with our photo. Okay, so the commission is done. And now we're going to create something a little more interesting. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing is I'm adding a grid to this light. And what that's going to do is going to immediately make this light a little less of a spread. It's going to narrow it. It's going to be a little more precise, a little more like a scalpel. You know, a lot of times when you're shooting kind of a basic headshot, you want that light bouncing around into all the things just because more soft light makes people look better. In this case, Gerald's got the bone structure and the look where I could do something like a little less soft and he's still going to look great. As photographers, you shouldn't always be scared of harsh light, you know? And so I think that that's what we're going to do to start with. And again, we're in this small space, and I'm shooting with the Fujinon 16-55, which is essentially a 24-70 on a full-frame equivalent for those of you that are full-frame shooters. And we have to remeasure, actually, Gerald. Because as we all know, the grid reduces the power output of the light, right? Is that what you were going to say? I just wanted you to feel like you were part of it, man. You know? All right.
No, I'm learning.
I'm always educating myself, too. Like, where I'm educating myself that I should have worn more deodorant because I am sweating so much. Thanks, New York, for being hot and stuff. All right.
You're from Florida,
Dude.
Like, thanks, New York.
You keep pointing that out like I'm not aware that I'm from Florida. All
My
right.
man walked in here. Is like, this is like January where I'm from.
It is. It is. All right. Doesn't mean it's not hot there too. All right. 3, 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this so I get a little more dramatic, shallow depth of field. And so in this case, we're going to shoot at f2.8. So I'm going to open that up a little bit and adding the grid onto that. We're going to get some ambient in there, Seth said, except I dropped the ISO down to 125 instead of 320. So we'll see how it goes. You want to do a blank slate test? All right, let's do it. Okay, about the same. Yep, so we're pretty good. All right, so this is one light. To start with, Gerald, why don't you face me dead straight on, put your feet on the ground. Now, one of the things I like to do that I think lends people a lot of power is I think that I want Gerald to have power and presence in this image. So I'm going to take a slightly lower angle and a slightly wider lens choice to sort of exaggerate the proportions. And I think that kind of makes stuff look a little cool, a little cooler, a little different. All right, so let's see what we got here. This is our one light test. Gerald, if you'd lift your chin this way into that light a little bit, so tilt. Yep, that's where I need you. Good. All right, so let's see what that looks like. We're getting there, and then lower that chin down. Oh, I forgot to change my aperture on that. There you go. Chin down a little. Okay, there we go. Now, what you'll see is we've got a really cool, dramatic light, and I've turned off the other lights so we don't have any separation. But you'll see right off the bat that with that grid, we've gotten a lot less throw of that light on the background. So that background went really, really dark, which is going to give us the ability to do some really cool painting with these other lights. So this next phrase I'm going to use, knowing that Seth is probably going to vomit when I say it. It's okay. So we're going to use motivated light, Seth.
Right with motivated. I'm right. You really want to do this live?
No, yeah, always, dude. What, like, is it better when Seth and I are bickering? Because I think it is, isn't it better? Yeah. It's all right. Later we're gonna hug each other, and it's fine. All right.
This is what happens when you leave the door open. I just want you guys to understand what happens.
All right. You're a real doll, buddy. All right. Better be safe than sorry, right? Or they'll blow us up in the comments. So one of the reasons that I do this a lot with professionals when I am just doing that standard headshot is that if I give them something that looks like it might go in Wired magazine or Fortune or something like that, the clients who spend the most money with me are the ones who I make look the richest. Give them photos that they can't say no to, something that's non-conventional. And one of the cheapest, easiest ways to get a non-conventional portrait that's still in the vein of kind of headshot, although the headshot police are out there, they'll tell you right away that it's not a headshot, and that's okay, is to move your body a little bit around the subject, shooting at a slightly different angle, and then have them not look into the lens. And all of a sudden, it's a completely different image. It's such a cheap way. There is a video I did on that in detail here for the Adorama main channel. Yeah, Bill.
Could you talk a little bit about how you're not really aiming?
That's a great point, Bill. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Bill just asked me about feathering the light, and he noticed, because Bill is a keen observer of my abilities here, that I very rarely point a light directly at my subject. It's one of the ways that I gain a little more control of the light, one of the ways that I get light to bounce around a little bit more. That basic wisdom when you're beginning in photography always tells you 45 and 45, right? But you'll notice that I'm always kind of shooting a light across in front of the person. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I think the light off the edge of a softbox is a little bit nicer. And the other is that I very often have my clients lean into me. So if I meter them, like and then I get this all set, and then I lean them in, it's going to be a little brighter. And so I can actually get them a little bit more of an exposure by pulling them into closer to the center of the softbox. So great question, Bill. But I typically use the edge. It's just how I've done it for so long. Because if you're in a close quarter situation, in a small space, that means you typically are going to have to use your light modifier close to your subject. then when that happens, you're going to get such a dramatic difference between the lit and shadow side of the face, to the point where like the place where the light hits Gerald's face first is going to be like 2 or 3 stops different than over here. So this gives me a little more even of a transition between the light and shadow side of the face. Now, you don't have to worry about it nearly as much if you've got a lot of room, but when you're shooting close, I feather the softbox quite a lot. Great question. Eric?
Sorry, Bob.
Don't apologize. Just be loud so I can hear you. I'm old and the air conditioning's loud. Okay. How did I build my client base? We're going to have to circle back to that at the end. Can we put a pin in that and answer work business questions at the end? And okay, cool. Because I don't want to waste too much of Gerald's time, but I do want to get to that. Yeah.
Do you always have your clients sitting down?
Great question. Do I have my clients sitting down? I have my clients sit down, stand up, hang off of a ladder, whatever will get the job done. Funny enough, one time I photographed headshots at a convention, and it was the entire Norwegian sales team for this gigantic company. It was like 200 guys. The shortest one was 6'6", and the room they put me in had 8-foot ceilings. So like, and I had flown to San Diego for this event, and so I didn't fly with a stool, you know. So I grabbed the piano bench out of the lobby, and and everybody it's like 150 members of their Norwegian sales force are all sitting on a piano bench, not at the same time, but they were all sitting on a piano bench. Thank you. I appreciate that, Charles. So I believe it really depends. I have a joke. I photograph a lot of actors as well. I always have my actors sit down because they can't stand still. But for it really just depends. Seated subject is a really good way to get a lot of different poses more naturally. If I'm going quickly in a volume situation, it's almost always standing. So yes, the answer is yes, I do all that. Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I'd say the main danger in having a seated subject is it changes how their clothes hang on them. Yeah, and their posture. Whereas all these headshots look like everybody was peeing in the woods, you know? Like, yeah, so I think it's, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You see that bus ad, you're like, dude, couldn't wait? Had to do it during your headshot session? No, all right. So let's do a couple more. Now that we've added that second light here.
You got a lens question.
I got a lens question. Hit me with it.
They're basically asking, do you always use wide angle?
No, I do not always use wide angle. The lens that's on my camera 90% of the time is the 50 to 140, which is essentially a 70 to 200 full frame equivalent lens. That's what I work with most of the time. But again, as I said before, most of my work is volume headshots at conferences, and that's the lens I use the most. But in my studio, I use a lot of different, I use 3 lenses mostly. I have this one, 16 to 55, the 50 to 140, and then I also use the 33 millimeter 1.4, which is essentially a 50. Like portrait photographers love a 50 millimeter lens, which we'll bust out here in a second. All right, there we go. Good questions, man. All right, so let's just see how that second light. Good. Now, what I have you do, turn your feet to the right. All right, this is going to get playfully athletic. All right. Okay. All right. So when I'm photographing someone seated, people would do this a lot, and this is very submissive, right? So you'll see this, the groomsman pose. People do that in front of the camera a lot, right? This is the human equivalent of a dog tucking its tail between its legs. You're covering your soft underbelly and your genitals. That's basically what you're doing. So, and this is the opposite of someone looking powerful. And and it's the thing I see photographers make that mistake a ton. You got to break the chains, man. You got to stand up tall and get your hands on your sides. But when you're seated, it's the same. You just do it like this. And people are in an uncomfortable situation. Having your portrait taken is the worst. So you got to kind of make it look like it's not the worst for your average person. Models love it. All right, so one of the ways I do it when seated is I tell people to put their wrists on the tops of their thighs. And what that does is it separates your elbows from your body a little bit, and they can just relax their shoulders. They don't have to, you just completely relax them. If your wrists are here, your shoulders, everything will be perfect. Good. So I do this a lot. With your body this way, I want you to turn your head this way. Yeah, your brain is going to hate this. Okay. All right, good. Tilt your head a little, right? There you go. Perfect. All right, there we go. Now, if somebody looks really stiff, I just tell them to breathe once. And then it usually makes it look natural. Take a deep breath. Gerald, let it out till it's normal. All right, there you go. And now I want you to lean a little bit toward me. Raise your chin a touch. Now, when you photograph somebody and it's like at an angle like this, you're going to see that actually bring your head this way a little bit. There you go, Gerald. That's perfect. you're going to bring their eyes into a place where you're going to get mostly the whites of their eyes. And I think that you don't want to do that. You want to get the pupils kind of centered. So even though Gerald's face is over here, I want your eyes to be here, if you would. Look right here at my hand and up this way. There. So this way you can still see the eyes. Now take a breath and let it all relax. Good. Perfect. Chin down a little. There it is. And then chin down a little more. There we go. All right. Boom. All right. There we go. Okay. That's pretty cool so far. Don't mind that at all. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little more light for depth. So I use this soda can light a lot, this 8100 Pro, mostly as a background light. And we had someone, I think, in the chat ask about this modifier. I got this here, I'm pretty sure. It's just a little rubber snoot. And all it does is it just controls the spread of the light a little bit. And so it actually makes a really cool background spot. This is the number one thing I use this light for. So one of the things that I do is I try to make sure that the light has a reason for being there. And some people call that motivated lighting. I think it's more of a cinematography term, you know, where you have, let's say, what looks like a light source in the background. It's basically a way of visually explaining why that light is hitting a subject. And so in this case, I take this light is going to be splashing the background. This light is going to be splashing him. But from the perspective of the viewer in the image, it was going to kind of look like the same light source is doing both things, almost like there was a sconce light over here on the corner. Does that make sense? So I always try, if I light the background, I try to light the background in the same direction as the most prominent light behind the subject. And I feel like maybe it's just a me thing, but I feel like it just always looks a little bit better that way. And that's almost always the opposite side of my main light. So if I have one edge, which in a small situation I will, one separation light here that goes on the subject, I'll try to keep that the opposite of the main light. And then if I splash the background with something, it'll typically be from the same direction as that edge light. And I just like the way that looks better. I like it. It feels like it has a reason to be there.
Yeah,
all right.
They're really quick. They're asking if you use the zoom function on the 100.
Oh, no, not really. You can, but it still wouldn't be as narrow as if you use we use the actual zoom function. So inside that Fresnel type head, you can actually zoom the element backwards and forwards, which essentially narrows the throw of light a little bit. And I have done that a ton, especially as a recovering wedding photographer. When I'm bouncing light off of a wall, if you narrow the throw of the light, I felt like, I don't know if it makes any sense, but it feels like it goes farther, you know? I don't know. But no, I don't use the zoom function. I don't think I've changed it once since I bought that thing 5 years ago, you know? I know. Look, I don't typically use it because in this situation, it would probably narrow the throw of light, but the shape of it probably still wouldn't be what I wanted. I think that's going to give me a much better zoom, but we're going to see. We're going to put that to the test right now. All right, so we're going to put that at a 30 seconds, see how that goes. All right, just a test. Ooh, too much. Here we go. All right, there. All right, so let's make this work. Gerald, I want to have you turn your feet around this way for me. Yes, please. All right. So do that. Now, if we zoom in here, there we go. Boop, 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 boop. We're going to change this up a little bit. I want to get a little more control of this. So I'm going to change my settings just a little bit so that this main light is putting out a little more power. And then I'm going to adjust my light. There we go, and to 5.6, there we go, and boom. There we go, now. So what I was doing is that light in that small space was getting a little too strong, and it was already down at its lowest possible power. So I increased the power of this light, I doubled the power of that light, then I could change my camera exposure, so now that looks a lot darker than it was, and that's why I did all that. All right, here we go. Now I want to get that other light back in there. There we go. Okay. You ready, Gerald? Okay. I'm going to have this a little bit. Can you do me a favor and scoot your stool this way a little bit? Yep, please keep going a little bit more. And then this way just a little bit more toward me. Keep coming. Yes, sir, that's what I needed. Thank you, thank you. All right. All right, bring your feet 3 degrees toward me if you would. Awesome. All right, now I want your eyes at me. Good. And now lips gently together. Tilt your head this way. Come forward and down a little bit. Now take your right hand and put it like this. And take your left forearm and slide it down your arm a little bit. I call that the John Wayne pose, by the way. That's the old John Wayne. All right, here we go. We should be in pretty good shape. There it is. Okay. Lips together just a little bit, and I want you to let's go in this way. Why not some vertical? You know, it's always landscape. So I'm going to come in through the shoulder. It's going to create a little foreground out of it. Good. And lift your chin a little bit. There we go. Yeah, not too shabby. Tilt this way just a tiny bit. Chin forward and down a little bit. Right there, Gerald. Perfect. And now we're going to add a little bit of fill. And away we go. Boom. And now, one of my favorite things is I'm going to change this, because with the Fujifilm cameras, you get all the film simulations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to Fujifilm Acros green filter, which is my favorite black and white. Lean on your left hip a little bit. There we go. A little less. Right there. Perfect. And then into me at the waist a little. That's it. Nailed it. All right. Lips gently together for me. There. Very cool. Nicely done. Nose this way a little bit. Tilt a little that way. Boom. There we go. Now we're on Forbes. A totally different vibe. Okay, let's take a look.
Quick question.
Seth, shoot.
They're asking why wouldn't you meet her again after having your subject move that much?
Why don't I meet her again? Great question. Because I did the math in my head. I should have metered for the sake of the audience, but the light is at the pretty much the exact same distance. And if I double the power of the light, that means that's going to be a stop difference. So if I was shooting at f2.8 and I changed the light, I doubled the power, I should be able to make my camera's aperture f4, and I should still have a correct exposure. It's not a perfect science, but I bet if I metered it, I'd be pretty close. All right. There you go. Not too bad. How'd I do? Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Let's do something else. How we doing on time, Set? Okay, cool. Put that lens somewhere. I had a whole nother camera body and a whole nother lens. I had that 33 somewhere, but that's all right. Okay. Let's go ahead and do something in this small space. Let's change it around from a simple headshot. Okay, are you ready, Gerald?
Yep.
Oh, there it is. Thanks. Okay. All right, can we go all the way back to the wall?
Did you look directly at it and just
I
go,
did.
meh?
My wife calls it a Gary look. It's like when you look for something, look right at it, and then go, I can't find it, honey. And then she goes and puts her hands right on it. So we call it the daddy look sometimes at my house. All right. Although that's a totally different thing when you're going out clubbing, is the daddy look. No? Nobody's with me on that? All right. You're going to have to edit this stuff out? All right. There we go. I'm going to build this all over again. Perfect. So we're using roughly the same amount of space, but I want to get something that's a little different. So here we go. That's New York, Chicago, LA. I learned that today, if anybody didn't know that. All right. I'm going to take this as well.
Why am I always changing your life?
You're changing my life like literally one bitter lesson at a time.
It's bitter.
Okay.
I'm not doing this.
Stand up. I'm going to have you sit on this New York apple box.
Okay.
That works for you. Go, perfect. Stable enough? There we go. All right, this is going to go right between the knees here. Ready? All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to photograph you. You look like a sexy carpenter, so that's what we're going to go for, okay? We're going to pretend you're a carpenter. What I want you to do is to bring your elbows forward and here. You do that? Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Nailed it. This is the sexy carpenter photo.
While Gary's futzing, you guys in the chat, if you hit like, Gary feeds his 37 kids on likes.
37
kids on likes. And hit subscribe for all of you asking if this is gonna be up later. Yes, as soon as it's done being live,
on
it's
YouTube.
here
It's
forever.
forever.
Just like Gary's other train wreck of a demo. So you can watch this back as many times as you want. And 2 years of classes just like it. Hit subscribe, hit like,
Look,
make Gary feel better.
I don't want to ruin it, but so far nothing's broken.
This better be your last frame. I am like, yeah, yes, knock on Formica. Thank you.
No, it's vinyl. It's vinyl. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and meter that again. All right. So the idea is we're getting completely different images with just a couple of adjustments, the same lights in the same space. Gear is not an excuse. Space is not an excuse. Laziness, now that's an excuse. It's a bad one, but that's certainly an excuse. So you just have to have the energy. And man, let me tell you what, as Seth pointed out, I have so many kids. And I'm so tired all the time. But I like to try and save a little bit of energy for my clients because truthfully, like, being photographed well is a transformative experience for people. Have you ever given that to somebody when they walk out like skipping? They come in and they're like, I hate every picture that anyone's ever taken of me except for this one selfie when I was in Cabo 25 years ago. I use that for my LinkedIn. And then you take their picture really well and they have a great experience with you. We have a really cool opportunity to give people something really special. People drag their self-image into our studios and they make it our problem. It's not your fault, but it is your problem now. And that's just what we do. We're kind of bartenders, people tell us all kinds of random stuff, but you have to, without letting your ego get in the way, let them unload a little bit and then give them something amazing. That's kind of our job. And it's the hardest part of our job, but it's also the most rewarding. So laziness is not an excuse. Tiredness is not an excuse. If you're too tired to do your job well, get another job or sell a kid or two, I honestly believe that. And man, I hate, you got to ask for it. And I hate it, but sometimes I really don't want to. But there's never been a time when I took an extra 2 minutes, moved a couple of lights, tried to do something a little bit different for somebody when they left. And I was like, wasn't worth it. It never happened. I'm always so glad I did. Although one time, there was a guy in my studio, the first thing he did was he came in and he went right for the thermostat and started adjusting it. That's the only person I've ever hated in my studio. He walked right in and over, not even said hi, just started adjusting the thermostat. Who does that? What kind of a monster are you? Gerald, would you ever touch another man's thermostat? Never.
So what Gary's saying is don't worry about your model being comfortable or feeling like they can be in your space and be themselves.
Hey, don't even pretend like it's normal to touch someone's thermostat before you even say hello.
We're talking about a device on a wall that's in easy access to anyone within the room, right?
All I'm saying,
and they are sharing that space with you and thus have to be comfortable for the portrait they're going to you for?
You wouldn't like it either. I know you're trying to be funny, but man.
Yeah, but I have an MO of hating everybody, so it's true. It's all right.
I want you to just think about it. Put yourself mentally, let's do a little in the theater of the mind. Someone you've never met before walks into your personal space, walks right over to the thermostat, starts touching it, all right? How do you feel right now? Does it make you anxious? Yes. No, Chris, I see you back there. It's a huge point. Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. Exactly. I am not wrong about such things.
Someone's saying real dad energy about the thermostat.
Oh, man. What's that movie with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell? Where they're like, did you touch a thermostat? I don't know. Who would do something like that, Who would touch another person's thermostat? Not me, bro. Not me. All right. Let me go. All right. So... yeah, I'm on the new lens. There we go. You know what I'm going to do? I like that. I know I literally just took it off, but I'm going to put that honeycomb grid back on. Because that light is hitting that background a little too much. Thank you. Can't stand it, can you, Seth?
No, well, some of us are actually professionals.
I was going to get to it.
No, you weren't.
I was going to do it. It was funny while we were setting up, I kept knocking things off the shelf, and Seth is like having little panic attacks all over. If you haven't followed the journey of him creating this incredible space basically from scratch, you can understand why he's protective of it, because he bled into this place.
The paint. You do have a question in the crowd if you want to actually pay attention to people for a change.
Okay. Bill has so many questions. Bill's very needy. Yeah, Bill, what's up?
The last Forbes look, what length of lens was that you were on?
I was still using the 24 to the 70. It's a 16 to 55. That was probably, if I had to guess, that was about 40 millimeters, like full frame equivalent. All right, here we go. Oh.
Maybe next time repeat the question, Gary. I'm just saying.
Oh, buddy. You know, Joe McNally doesn't get this kind of guff off of you.
So you're comparing yourself to Joe McNally for the record.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. What's Joe McNally got that I don't got besides money and a career and adoring fans? Yeah.
Joe, I know you're old, but the comment thing down below, leave whatever you want to say about that right down.
Is Joe watching?
I love you, Joe.
Just be like, just tell him I'm a fan, okay? Just tell him I love him and I want to be like him when I grow up. All right. We are. Yeah. Oh, set. All right. Here we go. All right. We're in pretty good shape now. Here we go. And I did lose a stop of light when I put that honeycomb grid on. I went from f5.6 to f4. You will cut the power of the light roughly in half when you use a honeycomb grid. So just remember, especially if you're on a light that's battery powered, honeycomb grid means you're burning up twice as much battery power as when you're not using it. And that really is going to depend on light to light modifier, but overall, you got it. My dad tried to explain that to me once when I was just starting out in photography. I was like, look, I got this modifier for my on-camera flash. He's like, okay, just be careful, you'll use up the batteries. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. You're wrong and dumb. And he was right, and I was dumb, you know? You're wrong and dumb, Dad. You're too old. I think he was like 50 at the time, you know, which is, I'm pushing that myself now. All right. You're wrong and dumb, and everyone says so behind your back. No, my dad, he's like the smartest guy. He like doesn't talk unless he knows what he's talking about. All right. Remember Sexy Carpenter?
I'm just going to get a therapy couch in here.
Give me a little more. Yeah, that's it. Just don't put weight on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the beard stroke, but bring it like there. Yeah, that's it. And now tilt a little, turn a little, and then lips gently together. Yeah, there you go. Thanks. That is awesome. Good instincts. Good. And now, one trick that I do that often creates slightly more interesting images is I have them look over the top of my head instead of at me. It's like an editorial photographer cover of a magazine trick. It's like, ooh, fancy. They're not looking at the camera. All right, try that. So tilt a little this way, and then bring that hand. That's pretty good. Just no weight on it. Don't squish your beard. Yeah, perfect. All right, lips together. Tilt a little, and then I want you to look here. All right, there you go. Boom. All right, chin down a little, almost like leaning on. I'm talking too quiet. That's perfect. There it is, right there. Nice moves. Yeah. All right, now here. All right, now what I want you to do is this. This is going to get really intense. Are you ready, Gerald? Mm-hmm. I want you to look right here, and I want you to laugh at my pet unicorn. There it is. All right, there, nicely done. I do that for my kids. Its name is Clarence the unicorn. If you're watching, kids, Clarence loves you. Okay, here we go. How we do? That's pretty good. Doesn't matter why he's laughing. Just matters that he's laughing. Look at that. Very cool. You see what I mean about like looking slightly above the photographer? It's like such an easy trick to get a slightly different image. It's almost like a cheat code, you know? That's pretty awesome. So one of the things I like to do that looks really good on websites for clients, especially like creatives, artistic types, is I like to create a triptych. It's like 3 images that are exactly the same and just different expression in each one. It's such a cool personality thing for like an about page rather than just a single photo. So in this case, you might have something like this, something like that, you know? Those make really, really killer images. And by the way, I just want to point out that thanks to that awesome Macros G film simulation that is directly out of camera, I have done nothing to adjust this image. which is actually really, really cool. So that's tethering here into Capture One, by the way, in case anybody asks. All right, Seth, we have any questions?
No.
No. All right, we're gonna get to Eric's. Eric wants to know how to create a whole photography business. So before we start that, how do you have a 20-year career in photography? Okay, Eric, you ready? Buckle up, buddy. Now we'll get to it. Okay, any other questions about the photography stuff, the cameras, the gear, the lenses, the lights, the approach, anything like that? Pretty good? Okay, you guys ready to learn how to make a photography business? Yeah, anything you like, please. Save me from Eric, please.
Wow. To how to build a photography business. So I'm a relatively new photographer.
Cool.
And I'm also a recovering wedding photographer.
Oh, God bless you. I love that for you.
I still shoot weddings, but I am shooting more headshots and portraits now.
Sure.
Going more into corporate. I did a ton of free work. And I'm still doing free work to build that up with models, with actual small businesses.
Got it.
Cold reaching out to businesses.
Uh-huh.
That's like an ongoing process, and I've learned to love it. It's very painful in the beginning. I come from corporate America, so it is quite painful.
Got it.
But I kind of just learned to live with it. So that's how I'm building my business. I'm not there yet.
Was there a question?
Yeah.
No, I'm just adding to.
Oh, okay, good. All right, I'll tell you what.
So
Hang tight with that for a second.
I'm just going to end with saying, perhaps this is one way of building it, but I'd love to know if there's a better way.
Oh, is there a better? Yes, 1,000% there's a better way, but that's not a bad way. So the question was about building a business, and then was added to here, like about reaching out, doing free work and cold calling, stuff like that. I will first and foremost say that my entire first website, photography website, was populated with pictures of my friends and family that I took for free. Okay? So like portfolio is portfolio. And it takes a long time, I think, to kind of like figure out who you are as a photographer, who you want to be as a business, you know? And so like I've done ducks and bunnies for Easter. I've done Santa. I've done school portrait. I've done all of it. So it took me years to figure out kind of like who I wanted to be and how I landed on that. So give yourself some grace when figuring stuff out. And people on the internet love to seem way smarter and more accomplished than they are. So in case you may not need that, but in case you needed to hear that, they're all lying to make themselves look better. And anyone who speaks in absolutes or is crappy to someone because they seem like they need a little more help than others, well, they're all morons, okay? Because everybody who I know who is killing it in this industry is generous, is kind, does not speak down to other people, and those are the best ones. Anybody who isn't is not successful. I don't know anybody who treats other people poorly. So
Yeah.
do keep that in mind.
Yeah, treat them better. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, you're very welcome. My permission, I give you all permission to suck for as long as you need to suck before you get good. And don't let anybody tell you you can't suck. You get to suck just like I did when I started out. I wish I had it. I could show you my first paid headshot session I ever did. I should have been in jail for charging that person for that picture that I took. Okay. I think that there's an interesting thing when it comes to working as a B2B business that's different. My experience is that B2B business, that's working for companies, working for entrepreneurs, it's typically project driven. So that means the big money jobs come when a company decides to do something that they need pictures for. I have very rarely seen people become successful in that industry by reaching out to people who have not yet decided to do a project that involves photos. It's more passive marketing that involves being the one that they get recommended to, or being there when they look for it and when they're ready to spend. You're going to have a heck of a Sisyphusian rock uphill battle trying to get $1 billion company to spend money that they didn't intend to spend in the first place. And so my success is narrowed down to this: is you have to have a killer website with great positioning, not just for Google results, but with also now with AI searches. Those principles are still the same. Has to have the best content. There's no keywords. There's no tricking it. You got to be there when they go looking for it. Now, for individuals, it's a little easier to convince that person that they might need photos. But very often, again, when you're talking about business, it's usually coupled with, I got a new website coming up, or I'm rebranding, stuff like that. It's very hard to get people in front of a camera who don't want to be there. Unless they're... Now, I would recommend the cheat code shortcut. You cannot work enough on your website and getting great results for searches. You cannot spend enough time being good at that. Watch YouTube videos, go to master classes, go to conventions, go to non-photography industry conventions, like sit in a room with anybody who can teach you anything about how to get found on the internet. That's how you need to be spending your time as an entrepreneur. The other thing I would say is the shortcut is in the wedding business, which we are both recovering from, being recommended by venues and planners was like the jam, right? Like that's how good clients get to you. A client that hires an expensive wedding planner is going to spend some money on their photography, right? A client who's getting married in an expensive wedding venue is going to spend a lot of money on photography. Not everybody who Googles you and finds your work to be appealing is going to have money to spend on photography. So I think that's sort of qualifying. And a lot of corporate work is the same. And so you want to be in with marketing companies, corporate event planning companies, and venues that host conferences. And those are great places to get in with. Also recommend being involved with your Chamber of Commerce as a volunteer. Don't just go, like I always say that going to a Chamber of Commerce or a networking group or something and like trying to make those people your clients is like going to speed dating, right? But this is what you don't do at speed dating. You don't sit down in front of a person and go, I came for sex. That's what happened when you go to a networking meeting and you're like, here's my card if you need headshots. You're asking for sex on the first date. You know what I mean? Those types of things are about becoming part of your community, about becoming a good business person, and they sniff people out like that. All those people they wash out, mostly realtors, they wash right out of those groups. So that's a good long-term strategy, but by being involved in our Chamber of Commerce, which has been incredibly rewarding, not just financially, but becoming a better members of our community, we are now the official photographer of the city that we live in. I photograph the fire department, the mayor, the city commission. We get recommended for work all the time because I went in and we volunteered. And I volunteer on a weekly basis. I photograph the entire chamber staff, headshots for free. If they need me for something, I show with my camera, take pictures of it, and I have for 5 or 6 years. And it took time to build a relationship like that. So Google, you want marketing companies to recommend you, corporate event planners to recommend you, and then you want venues to recommend you, all not for weddings, if that makes sense. And that plus SEO, that's the best way to spend your time. Cold calling is going to be the lowest ROI you're going to get on work like that. It feels like you're doing something, and it feels good. And every once in a while, 1 in a 200 phone calls, you'll ring that bell and you'll get something out of it. But mostly, if you put that much energy into something with a better ROI, you'll be able to build your business faster. A photography business is a small business with a slow growth curve. Most photographers who don't wash out professionally usually hit their stride around year 6. And you're starting a whole new genre. The other thing that I would do is I call shop your closet. Go back through your existing client base and let them know you don't just shoot weddings. It's shocking how many people wouldn't even think of you when they needed headshots because they think of you as their wedding photographer. Do a big outreach to all the people you've already worked for and let them know, hey, we're adding this new service. If you need anything, just let me know. That's all there is to it. And you'd be surprised what kind of results you can get from that. Does that help? Absolutely. Eric, does that help you? Yeah. Do you need anything else? Any other business questions? Good, you sure? You're so kind to me, man. Yeah, yes, sir. Am I a big, am I a big proponent of social media? I think that it depends on what type of photography you do, but social media, you absolutely can't avoid it if you're in business. I think if you're going to go into B2B stuff, headshots, professional portraits, I can tell you that the most direct work that I've booked through any social media platform is LinkedIn. If you've got clients that are active on LinkedIn, those clients are usually movers and shakers. It doesn't mean everybody who's successful is on LinkedIn, doing a lot on LinkedIn, but you can bet that somebody who's putting a lot of time into making content for LinkedIn is very business focused and network focused. I had a guy come into my studio, and this may seem like a huge number to you. It may seem like a very small number to you. I know this is New York City, where like everything's more expensive than where I come from. But a gentleman who just came into my studio and he spent $3,000 on headshots and branding photography, which is a lot for us. I asked him how he found us and how he made the decision to book with us. And he said, by the time I saw the third person I know post the headshot that you took and say how great you were, I knew that I had to hire you when I needed headshots. So 3 different clients of mine. So we've focused a lot of our energy now on getting those clients. I start talking to them about it when I'm in the camera room with them. and I'll ask them how they plan to deploy the images, if they're willing to do a collaborative post, if they're, you know what I mean? Like, I put that thought in their head ahead of time, because new photos means Gerald's got something exciting to post about, which is we're all desperate for that kind of content, you know what I mean? So, but it works best when they post it and tag you more than you post it and tag them. So I would put my energy into LinkedIn if I was going after business professionals. I think I'd start there. Number one place to put your energy into is getting search engine results, Google specifically, and then ChatGPT and Grok and whatever the heck is out there. There's an entire new generation of people that are going to search differently than we have been trained by Google to search. Do you ever think about how Google has trained us to search for things, putting in our location modifiers, the language that we use, the syntax? It's all based around 20 years of successful Google searching. We're all trained. My kids will not be. They're going to go, Alexa, can you tell me who the 5 best headshot photographers in Orlando are? And I don't want to spend more than $500. Also, I'd like it to be within 5 miles of my house. Like that is, it's going to be the most natural thing in the world to search like that. So if you plan longevity in business, that shift has already begun for those kinds of searches. So you have to be aware of how people look for things. Right now, I think Google is still kind of on top, but even Google has Gemini, which is giving its own AI results. So concentrating on how people find things. Headshot photographers, branding, portraits, stuff like that, without the recommendation of a marketing person, people hire you like a tow truck. All right, they're not going to follow you and fall in love with your work, and then 3 years later, they're going to need you and think of you. They're going to go, somebody comes to middle management and they go, all right, we need headshots for everybody in the office. Go find them. And then that person, because they're a millennial or an older Gen Z kid, they go to Google and they go, headshots, New York. And then they basically send an email to the first 5 people, and whoever gets back first will do it for the amount of money they want to spend, gets the job, the end. That's it. And so just like if you were to break down and call a tow truck, somebody puts that job, that thing to do, that to-do list item on their plate, they go get it done, and then they go back to looking for ink for the copy machine or whatever the hell it is they do with the rest of their day. So I think that's important to be there when they go looking, and that's the best way, in my opinion, to spend your energy. Social media-wise, I'd probably shift all my energy to LinkedIn at this point if I was looking to do business portraits and headshots. I would probably not even worry about TikTok or Instagram or Facebook at all, unless I was in some kind of groups. Facebook's main advantage is groups. Anything else? Seth, online. Okay, we're just about out of time, so I'm going to hang out. But I just, again, thank you, Adorama, for having me back. Thank you, Fujifilm and Flashpoint. And thanks, Seth, for being my comedy partner. We're going to just talk about how much we love each other as soon as the broadcast ends.
If you guys want to see more of
Gerald, for being so patient while I talked the whole time.
Thank you, Gerald. If you guys want to see more of this and talking, he was on Call for the Creators on the main channel. Link is in the chat. And this is where I'm going to leave you.
Pop my screen up for a second. There you go. Boom. That's if you want to sign up. My education page has all my speaking engagements, my latest YouTube videos, and you can sign up for my email list right there at that QR code link. I send out an email once a week that's pretty cool. Jen, you're on my email list. Is it good? Do I give good email? I do. Okay, thank you. And also here on YouTube as well, if you're checking that out, I have lots of cool videos, including ones I've made for the Adorama YouTube channel. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.